Here's a fairly clear example of why GHS, and in this case WHMIS 2015, which I'll get to in a minute, is a good idea. The same chemical has been classified in 5 different ways around the world. From non-toxic in India, hazardous, moderately toxic in China, harmful in EU, Australia, Malaysia, and Thailand, and toxic in Canada, US, Japan, and Korea. So you can see the problem there, particularly with globalization and materials coming from different countries. There still is, but becoming less so as countries adopt GHS, there has been a great variety in the way hazards are described. After harmonization, so any country that has adopted GHS, that chemical will have an acute toxicity category 3 rating. There will be the same pictogram, the same signal word, danger, the same hazard statement, toxic if swallowed. So the whole idea with GHS is standardization from one country to another, from one supplier to another, and also to make things a lot clearer in terms of what they actually mean. So, in summary, GHS is a coordinated system for identifying hazardous products. So it sets up a series of new classes and categories. It provides the rules for preparing consistent labels and consistent safety data sheets. So is WHMIS still WHMIS? Yes. We are not adopting GHS, we are incorporating GHS into WHMIS. Okay, so it's an important distinction because GHS, pure generic GHS, if you like, some of you may have seen the Purple Book from the United Nations. WHMIS 2015 is based on GHS in version 5 of the Purple Book, or edition 5. Take the WHMIS system, change the categories, the classes, the labels, the safety data sheets, and to align with GHS, and you have WHMIS 2015, essentially. How's that for an oversimplification? What will stay the same? Suppliers will still be responsible to ensure the appropriate classification of hazardous products. They'll still have to provide labels, and they'll still have to provide workplaces with safety data sheets. Say SDS instead of MSDS, same concept. Employers will still be responsible to make sure that all hazardous products are properly labeled, that up-to-date safety data sheets are readily available to workers, that workers receive education and training. There's more of a distinction between education and training in WHMIS 2015 than in WHMIS 1988, but essentially the requirements are the same. And make sure that the proper control measures are in place, that the health and safety of the workers is protected. Conceptually, WHMIS 2015 is just the same as WHMIS 1988. And part of, one of the main things behind the conversion is, one of the main principles, if you like, is that WHMIS 2015 would not be less protective than WHMIS 1988. So as I get into the classes and categories, you'll see that there are some places where we veered away from GHS and where we've kept elements of WHMIS 1988. And again, the whole emphasis there is that WHMIS 2015 should not be less protective than WHMIS 1988. And as far as workers go, workers are still required to participate in education and training programs, take the necessary steps to protect themselves and their co-workers, and participate in identifying and eliminating hazards. So as I say, conceptually, WHMIS is not changing. But what will change is the way chemical hazards are classified. So say more a concern, definitely a concern for the suppliers because they're the ones who have to do it. There are new label requirements, and there's a new standardized format for safety data sheets, SDS. So get used to SDS instead of MSDS. As far as the hazard groups and classes go, there are, in WHMIS 2015, there are two groups, physical hazards and health hazards. GHS also has environmental hazards. You may see labels and data sheets that have environmental information and use environmental classes. Those are not covered under WHMIS 2015. So WHMIS has incorporated physical hazards and health hazards. So the groups are at the top level, physical, health, environmental, which isn't part of WHMIS 2015. Then within that are the classes. So there are 19 physical classes and 12 health hazard classes. And the whole idea with the classes, these are the physical hazard classes, is that the classes themselves are more detailed and more descriptive. So one class under WHMIS 1988, oxidizing materials, it has 4 different classes under WHMIS 2015. Organic peroxides, oxidizing gases, oxidizing liquids, and oxidizing solids. So the idea is to go through all of these because of time and so forth. My presentation will be available afterwards, as Ken was saying in the opening presentation. In terms of health hazards, again, the same concept applies. It is intended to make the classes themselves more descriptive so that they're more intuitive. So instead of there are specific hazards. There are also a couple of additional hazard classes that are not in WHMIS 1988, and these are specific target organ toxicity, single exposure, and aspiration hazard. So, for example, for specific organ toxicity, single exposure to toluene will cause dizziness, central nervous system response. So that would be classified using specific target organ toxicity, single exposure. For aspiration hazard, an example is gasoline. If you breathe it in, it can cause very serious lung damage. Could be very, very serious, if not fatal. So that would be listed as an aspiration hazard. There are also a few new classes that are specific to WHMIS 2015. So these are things that are not in GHS, not in pure GHS, and are new to WHMIS as well. Or at least the classes are. The other thing to bear in mind is the hazards all stay the same, and the control measures don't necessarily change. It's just the way they're being described. And it's typically clear. Yeah?
Just a question I was wondering, so are these going to be the signal words on the labels?
No, these are the actual hazard classes.
Okay.
And I'll get to the signal words and precautionary statements and, all that stuff, danger word, or yeah, hazard. Okay. So as I say, these are, you've got the groups first, physical, health, then you've got the classes, the 19 physical and 12 health, plus these additional ones, and then within that are categories. I'll get to that in a minute. Just want another couple of words about these additional classes. These were mostly added to align with the US. The US adopted its version of GHS in 2012 through the Hazardous Communication Standard 2012. And so they have most of these classes in the US version. So basically to harmonize trade with the US, WHMIS 2015 adopted most of them as well. They have one hazards not otherwise classified, whereas we have physical hazards and health hazards not otherwise classified, which are really just their catch-alls for anything that isn't covered by the existing classes in WHMIS 2015. Haven't found a lot. Within each hazard class, there are hazard categories. So each class has at least one hazard category, usually 3, sometimes 5, but basically if it's category 1, it's the most hazardous. Go down the list, it becomes less hazardous. So something that is, well, I'll have examples later on, but category 1 is always the most hazardous. Okay, quick poll. See if you can listen. GHS will not replace WHMIS, but it will cause WHMIS to change in many ways. True or false? True. Right. Hazard classes and classification criteria will remain the same. All right. Good. We talk about labels. Supplier labels. These are the requirements under WHMIS 1988. Product identifier, supplier identifier, just their name, the hazard symbol, risk phrases and precautionary measures, first aid instructions, and a reference to MSDS. In WHMIS 2015, product identifier, supplier identifier, including more information about the supplier, the hazard pictogram, and just so you sound savvy if you want to impress people at cocktail parties, those are not diamonds, they are squares on a point. No, we were corrected early on about that, but yeah, they're not things in diamonds, they're things in a square on a point. One of the major differences, aside from the fact that it's different classes and so forth, and pictograms, is that hazard statements and precautionary statements are all standardized in WHMIS 2015 based on the GHS 5th edition. So if something says very toxic, it will always say very toxic using those words. It will never be anything different. So what you may get under WHMIS 1988, different suppliers classifying the same chemical, it may be classified the same way, but the words describing the hazards and the control measures may be different. Under WHMIS 2015, if they're classified the same way, all of the descriptive wording will be the same. So whether it comes from, you know, 2 different suppliers in Canada, or it comes from the States, or comes from Brazil, if it's classified as, you know, pick a classification, the hazard statements and precautionary statements will be the same. And there's also on WHMIS 2015 signal words. So hazard statements are, yeah, things like toxic, you know, may cause cancer, will cause serious eye irritation, things like that. Precautionary statements are response, prevention, storage, and disposal. And then there is the signal word. And there are just 2 of them. Danger or warning. Danger is obviously pay close attention. Warning is less serious. And the signal word you use depends on the classification. So it's not, once the thing is classified, there isn't a lot of room for subjectivity. It's pretty much defined that this is how it will be described.
If you just stop for a moment. The first instruction, so it's going to be eliminated then? The way you kind of aligned it, precautionary statement.
In the on the label, on the supplier
on the label, right?
Yeah. Now, SDS is a whole other,
Okay.
which I'll get to. So as I say, supplier labels, pictograms, signal words, hazard statements, cautionary statements, all standardized. Talk a little, yeah,
If they moved away from the distinctive border,
yes,
they have for sure.
yeah, no hash border. You'll see, I've got an example of a little bit of the labels side by side. So these, excuse me, these are the new pictograms in square red, and they will always be red. So red square on a point with the pictogram inside. So these are the official descriptions of these: exploding bomb, gas cylinder, exclamation mark, flame, corrosion, health hazard, flame over circle, skull and crossbones, and environment. Exclamation mark and health hazard are new. Environment you may see, but it's not being enforced under WHMIS 2015. So it's part of GHS, so you may see things with those pictograms, but it's not something that under WHMIS 2015 they are enforcing. Some of these are pretty much the same as WHMIS, some will look familiar because they come from TDG, but this is the new set here. And different combinations of pictograms are used with different hazard classes and categories. And I'm not going to go through all the gory details here, but you can see that, for example, well, these are all of the physical hazards are described by these 5 pictograms. And the health hazards are described by these 4. Sometimes on their own, sometimes in combination. And if you get to a classification with a lower category, 1 being the highest, the most hazardous, 3, 4, 5, there are some that don't use any pictograms at all. The odd one, yeah.
Can a biohazardous symbol be by itself, or does that have to be included with another pictogram?
No, I think it can be included by itself.
So there's 10 that...
Yeah, and again, biohazard, you notice it kind of stands out in that it's the only one that is the old style, because it was adopted, it was carried on from WHMIS 1988. Because GHS is chemicals, right? And WHMIS 1988 had biohazards. And as I said earlier, part of one of the main things that they wanted to be careful about was that WHMIS 2015 be not lose anything, and it be at least as protective as WHMIS 1988. So that's why we have biohazards. Yep.
So these are the basic 10s.
These are it.
Okay. So they're getting rid of dangerously reactive and...
Yeah, it's done all in combination.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, this is the holy grail here.
Okay.
And the 2 that are used for environmental, which you may see, are the dead fish, dead tree, and the exclamation mark. But exclamation mark is also used for health hazards. So I point these out, as I say, because stuff coming from other countries that use GHS, they use them. And then, yes, biohazardous infectious materials, as we just talked about, brought forward from WHMIS 1988 because there wasn't the equivalent in GHS. So this is an example to show that some use 1 pictogram, some use 2, some use different ones, and some don't use any at all. So just to further confuse things. Now I said that the classes have categories. Well, sometimes they have types instead.
Mm-hmm.
Type A, B, C, D, as opposed to category 1, 2, 3. Yes, just because. I'm sure there's a long and fractious history associated with the rationale behind these things, but I've only been working with it for a couple of years, not 8 or 10 years, and some of my colleagues. Okay, so for organic peroxides, type A, the most hazardous, uses the exploded bomb. Type B, still pretty hazardous, so type A, it can explode. Type B, well, it might explode or it might catch fire. Type C, D, E, and F, well, not likely to explode, so, but it still can catch fire. And type G, well, it's an organic peroxide, but it probably isn't going to catch fire or anything like that. So that's the basic approach that's used with attaching pictograms to the categories and types. Signal words. Yeah. Danger for the most hazardous, warning for less hazardous, and occasionally none. Hazard statements. As I mentioned, hazard statements are standardized in WHMIS 2015, taken from GHS, and they, if something is a flammable gas category 1, it will always be extremely flammable gas. Gas under pressure. Contains gas under pressure, may explode if heated. These hazard statements are prescribed by WHMIS 2015, by GHS, by WHMIS 2015, and if something is classified as having acute toxicity, category 1, it will always have the hazard statement, fatal if inhaled. So once you learn these hazard statements, suppliers can't get creative with them. They are prescribed. And descriptive. So the wording of the hazard statement helps describe the degree of hazard. Fatal, toxic, harmful. May cause cancer, suspected of causing cancer. And here's just one more example of skin corrosion and the different categories and the way they're described. So category 1 is the most corrosive, uses the corrosion pictogram, uses the signal word danger, and has a hazard statement, causes severe skin burns and eye damage. Category 2 is a little less serious, so it's just watch out, as a warning instead of danger, and causes skin irritation. Category 3, not that, well, I don't want to belittle anything and say not that serious, but less serious, less hazardous than the other categories. No pictogram, warning, and causes mild skin irritation. I mean, a little bit of trivia. WHMIS 2015 did adopt category 3 of skin corrosion, irritation. They just adopted category 1 and 2. But that gives a visual description of how things are classified and how the categories, and the pictograms, signal words, and hazard statements all work together. Yep.
Maybe I'm early on this, but from a transportation company, we're licensed only to haul non-hazardous goods. So which category level becomes hazardous goods now? Is it just category 1?
Good question. I don't have an answer. I can find out for you.
Yeah, I'll have to be in touch with you with that.
Yeah, let me, I'll come
We'll talk after.
up.
Would that be under TDG?
Yeah, it's,
Not WHMIS, all right?
well, if it's classed as a hazardous good, you're not licensed to haul
Well,
hazardous
this is
goods.
all hazardous materials under WHMIS. The TDG requirements are not changing as far as I know. I mean, there have been some updates to the legislation, but it's
You
not.
probably have to take a look at the safety data sheet, and under the transportation section, it would tell you if that product, if it's going to be transported on the road, is a TDG regulated product, and it would actually tell you what the UN number is, and what the classification would be. So the safety data sheet would probably give you that information if you were to put that product on the road. Right? So you'd have to look at the SDS. On the
Okay.
transportation and see if that product, when this regulated product, is actually a TDG regulated product.
But they continue to be two different
Two
legislative
different- yeah,
systems.
two different.
Yeah, that's,
So if
I'm
it
just
wasn't-
looking at the
So
crossover.
if it wasn't TDG
Before.
before, it isn't now. Like,
Mhm.
changes to WHMIS don't affect changes to TDG.
Right.
They're two separate systems.
Okay.
Okay, precautionary statements. So these are statements on how to minimize or control hazards. So keep container tightly closed, fight fire remotely due to risk of explosion, and these are on the label. You'll get just the main ones. There may be others on the SDS. The SDS will have more information. So this is a WHMIS 2015 supplier label for a fake product. You wouldn't believe how much back and forth we went through with Health Canada to finalize this. Because first it was, okay, it has to be English and French. Well, do they have to be on the same label? Well, that took about a week to get a decision on that. And so they can be, but they don't have to be. As long as you have two WHMIS labels, one English, French, on the same package, you're okay. But basically what you get is product identifier, pictograms, signal word, hazard statements, and cautionary statements. And then identifier, just supplier identifier, including address and phone number. So here's the comparison between the 1988 and the 2015 label for the same product.
Like the name between super good.
Yeah.
I'll buy that product.
Yeah, there you go. Little marketing thrown in as well. So yeah, as I say, it's not revolutionarily different. It's just the pictograms are different. There is more summary information right up front. The cautionary statements and hazard statements will be standardized, and there's more information about the supplier.
So they removed the border.
They've removed the word now. And question, I have it, I'll have to find out. My understanding is the pictograms always have to have the red circles around them, so I'll have to check into that, whether they have to be on the supplier label. Yeah,
Now, with the older products, are we required to obtain the new label?
okay, there's a can of worms, which I'll get into a little bit. I'll just take 2 minutes to try and answer your question as succinctly as possible. I'll talk about the transition period in a little bit, but basically, suppliers have to send you labels and SDS either for WHMIS 1988 or WHMIS 2015. You can't do, a WHMIS 2015 label and a WHMIS 1988 MSDS. They have to match up. And by the end of 2018, everything will be WHMIS 2015. But I'll get into more detail on that after. Workplace labels. These are the domain of the various jurisdictions' regulations. Basically, the way the legislation for WHMIS works. WHMIS legislation, the Hazardous Products Act, Hazardous Product Regulations, those determine what the suppliers have to provide. There will be a regulation for federally regulated companies and federal government coming out of the labor program, which will determine what federal workplaces have to do. Each of the provinces and territories will also have its own and workplace WHMIS regulation. None of these have happened yet. What happens in the workplace is covered by these jurisdictions' regulations. So, as far as workplace labels go, those will be covered by the jurisdictions' legislation. We expect that workplace labels will be pretty much the same as they are under WHMIS 1988, but that will really depend on what the jurisdictions decide. Let's talk about data sheets, safety data sheets. Under WHMIS 2015, there will be a standardized 16-section safety data sheet, SDS. This will be easier in the long run because the same type of information will always be in the same place on an SDS, regardless of what supplier sends it. The 16 sections are these: identification of the product and supplier, hazard identification, etc. Note that there are 4 sections that have asterisks. These are the ecological, disposal, transport, and regulatory. These are not included in WHMIS 2015. They are part of GHS, the GHS standard SDS. They may be on the data sheets, but it's not something that is required under WHMIS 2015. I want to get a little weird about it. The actual titles have to be there, but they don't have to have any content in them. Compromises everywhere, I guess. So the idea, as I say, is that it will all be, once again, be much more standardized, and once you know that firefighting measures are in section 5, anytime you look at any data sheet, it will be under the heading firefighting measures, it will be in section 5, and it will use standardized wording. Suppliers must provide safety data sheets to customers. Safety data sheets must be available to the workers in the workplace, same as MSDS. Updates are required when significant new information is available. This is another bit of a can of worms, in that under WHMIS 1988, the requirement is that the MSDS be updated every 3 years, at least once every 3 years. That doesn't exist in WHMIS 2015. What does exist though, and everyone's saying, phew, great, and then it's like, well, hold on a second. No, it's up to the employer to make sure that things are up to date, period. And so the supplier will is supposed to send information, or send you data sheets when significant changes have happened in classification, but it's the employer to make sure that their data sheets are current. Once again, this is something at the provincial, territorial, and federal jurisdiction level. Some provinces may keep the 3-year rule. I don't know what the federal regulation will say because we haven't seen it yet. Yep.
I was just reading a little bit about this the other day, and what I read said that the supplier was responsible to make sure that the SDS sheet was current at time of shipping or import.
That is correct.
So if something new came in, then that safety data sheet would have to be current.
Right, but if you've had something for a year
Sitting in your place.
and they've just reclassified the thing and found that there is some other hazard that they should be reporting, they're not required to send it to you.
Understood, thank you.
If they're good corporate citizens, they should, and think they want to cover their liability, but they're not required to.
I'm wondering how they're going to regulate that, especially with new chemicals that come into the.
The regulation, the enforcement is a whole. I keep talking about cans of worms, but the enforcement thing is certainly a concern, particularly right now, because the federal regulations about what the suppliers have to do are there, but the regulations about what workplaces have to do are not. So,
Yeah, that's a shady area.
yeah. So stay tuned on that one. And lots of other stuff too. Let me talk about the transition period. Where are we now? Hazardous Products Act amendments received royal assent last June. The hazardous products regulations were in force as of February 11th, 2015. And the federal, provincial, and territorial OSH regulations must be updated. That's what I'm talking about. They're ones that regulate what the workplaces are supposed to do. And there will be a multi-year transition period. And you'll probably, you'll find this on, I'll talk about some resources at the end, but one that is particularly useful is called WHMIS.org, because it is, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but you'll find this chart there, among other things. So, essentially, all workplaces will have to be completely WHMIS 2015 by December 1st, 2018. So, manufacturers and importers have a deadline of May 31st, 2018. Distributors have a deadline of November 30th, 2018, et cetera, et cetera. It's a little complicated, a little convoluted, but this chart kind of explains it. You see a lot of this employers, 1988 or 2015, 1988 or 2015, and then just 2015 by December 1st, 2018. In the meantime, from now until December 1st, 2018, you can use either WHMIS 1988 labels and MSDS, or you can use WHMIS 2015 labels and SDS, depending what your suppliers send you. But as I said a few minutes ago, you can't mix and match for a particular product. It's got to be either 1988 label and an SDS, or WHMIS 2015 label and SDS. So how does this affect the workplace? Well, guess what? You've got two systems to deal with until December 1st, 2018. What this means is that your employees need to be educated and trained on both systems. So if your workers already have received WHMIS training, or what is now being called WHMIS 1988, they will need education and training on WHMIS 2015. If you have new people coming into the workplace in the next 3.5 years, you will have to train them on both systems. So, it's just the way it is. Because there is a 3.5 year for workplaces, a 3.5 year, almost 4 years from February 11th, but transition period, it gives you time to work through your inventory. And it's a really good idea to do that. Work towards using up things with WHMIS 1988. Yeah.
Just have a question. Is this only for the federally regulated or even for the provincial data?
It's for the provinces as well. Yeah, no, it's the regulations that govern the education and training in the workplaces will be different from federal jurisdiction and the individual provinces, but they all have the same transition and all have the same timeline and the same general requirements to educate and train on both systems.
So what's the date by which all the employees should be trained on WHMIS 2015? Will that be
everything has to be completely WHMIS 2015 by December 1st, 2018. But you need to, just under general WHMIS regulations and health and safety regulations, you have, as soon as you get a WHMIS 2015 label data sheet into your workplace, then you are required to educate and train your workers on WHMIS 2015. In WHMIS 20, yeah.
Sorry. So regarding the training of employees, is there like previously you had done a US training, the Canada training would be different. Will that be now standardized? If you take a US training, is it valid?
No,
It's not.
it will still be different. It will be it should be very similar now with HAZCOM 2012 and WHMIS 2015, but they are a bit different. And in terms of learning about the hazard classes and pictograms, probably 90% the same, but 10% different. And my understanding is that a US, saying that you had received US HAZCOM 2012 training will not give you a pass on WHMIS 2015. You'll still have to have WHMIS 2015.
So even if the US training is 2015,
Oh, well, when you say US training, do you mean a US company giving WHMIS training?
yes.
Oh, okay, well, if they are giving the proper training for WHMIS 2015, then, you know, there are no specific requirements in terms of certified trainers or certified training content. It's still up to the employer to indicate that, to assure that their employees have received appropriate training. So if it's an American company that can give you WHMIS 2015 specific training, that should be fine.
It will be valid in Canada as well.
If it is WHMIS 2015 training, as opposed to IHSA training or HAZCOM 2012 training, because they're all a little different.
Thank you.
Okay. There's a much clearer distinction between education and training in WHMIS 2015. So education teaches the principles of WHMIS and the meaning of information on the labels and SDS. So it includes what WHMIS is about, the hazard classes, categories, SDS and labels, their purpose, content, significance of various words, and sources of additional information. So this is what WHMIS 2015 education should be made up of. And then WHMIS 2015 training is workplace specific. So this is how to work with the products, the hazardous products you have in your workplace, what the control measures are, and so forth. How to access the safety data sheets in your workplace, and any site-specific procedures for storage, handling, etc. So again, it's not really different than it was with WHMIS 1988. It's just a little more clearly identified. So, how to get ready? Maintain an accurate inventory. You've got to know where you are with your MSDS and SDS and your 1988 to 2015. And if you've got a choice, it's a good thing to use up your stuff with WHMIS 1988 labels and MSDS over the next 3 years, because at the end of that 3.5 years, December 1st, 2018, it will all have to be WHMIS 2015, and if you've still got products with WHMIS 1988 labels and MSDS, you are out of compliance. And watch as new products arrive, and as you know, the suppliers also have a transition period. It's shorter than workplaces, but some of them may choose to wait until the end of 2017 before they start sending out WHMIS 2015 stuff.
Will there be changes in that transition period? I mean, from 2015 to 2017?
No. No, that transition period is set, and the requirements for what suppliers send are set. So just that they have their choice about when they switch over.
So they can just wait for that.
They can wait.
And is there any requirement for a refresher training to be done like every year on board?
That will be at the federal and provincial regulation level for the workplaces. So, depends, and we don't know yet.
By when do you think we will know on that?
I've heard, well, I asked this yesterday actually in the office because we've got people involved on various committees and so forth. And the feds have been pretty quiet lately about this. Most of the jurisdictions we've heard from are planning for the fall. So sort of October-ish. But I don't know if the federal workplace regulation will, if that's the time frame they're working on. Couldn't really get a clear answer on that. But I think most of them are aiming for fall or end of 2015 in the latest, most of the jurisdictions. Brief word about resources that are available to you. CCUHS, we've been working very closely with Health Canada for years on preparing for WHMIS 2015. And we have a lot of information, much of it vetted by Health Canada regulators. So we know it's good, we know it's accurate.
Can I just clarify that some of the information you got is still drafted in the background? It's still draft. Is that going to change?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's really hard to hand things to people and say we have to learn this when it says draft.
Yeah, well, let me get into a little detail about that. WHMIS 2015 OSH answers. These are our fact sheets that are free on our website. They were all current, up-to-date WHMIS 2015. Anything that says WHMIS 2015 on it as opposed to WHMIS after GHS is current as of the hazardous products regulation. We have pictograms and a poster, a hazards poster. So we have a pictograms poster and a poster about the hazards. We have the WHMIS 2015 Instructors Toolkit, which just got released a couple of weeks ago. This is for WHMIS trainers. It's basically an instructor's guide, a set of overhead slides or projection slides, and a participant's manual. So it's how to teach all the stuff you need to teach in terms of the education part. So if anyone is involved in WHMIS training, you may want to have a look at this. We also have 3 e-courses on WHMIS 2015. WHMIS 2015 for workers. This is the up-to-date, this is the one that Health Canada has gone through word for word, line by line in English and French. They are also funding individuals to take this course for free until the end of September. So when I say individuals, I mean anyone can go to our website, register, get a password, take it. There's an exam, you get a certificate of completion. If an organization wants to do it, it's $10 a seat, and that gives you access to the learning management system, so you get automatic tracking. Whereas individuals signing up to take it, they'll get their own certificate, but there is no tracking of the fact that people take it. Yeah.
Is this a train the trainer program?
No,
No.
this is not. This is the education part of WHMIS 2015, and it's intended for workers.
Okay.
WHMIS after GHS, an introduction, which is in the process of being updated. WHMIS after GHS, how suppliers are prepared, also in the process of being updated. These are 3 really introductory courses. These are probably less than what you get in this session. But, and we also have WHMIS 2015 fact sheets. It's a set. You can download PDFs of them for free, print them off, and these are all really closely vetted content. So what's there is as accurate as CCUHS and Health Canada together could make. WHMIS.org. If you go nowhere else, go to WHMIS.org. This is the site where all jurisdictions are contributing content describing the situations in each jurisdiction. So labor program is providing information there, as well as all of the provinces and territories, and all of the CCUHS materials are accessible from there as well. And finally, we have a label program, a pen label, on our website, and it's a subscription product now, but we're developing a simplified free version of it, which will print off WHMIS 2015 labels. Any questions?